Welcome to the Into the Wilderness podcast, and I am back. I am one of your hosts, Byron Pace. My brother is sitting in the room with me. It is snowing outside.
I'm Daryl Pace. Byron forgot to mention that. He only mentioned himself.
It's snowing outside, and we have 2 or 3 dogs sitting in our office right now at the same time as Beth is packaging a shed load of T-shirts that all of you guys have been ordering, and mugs.
Thank you for the orders. Thank you very much. It's been absolutely outstanding, the amount of orders we've got from the UK to Sweden to
States.
I think about 5 or 6 different states within the United States.
Yeah.
The only thing I do ask is people, please, when you read the description, just read the delivery dates. We don't mind it, but we've had about 10 or 15 messages from people asking when their delivery would be, and when you ordered, it said that deliveries would be posted by the 30th of this month, which is today, the release of the podcast.
Yeah. And there was a very good reason for that, is because it was all pre-orders and nothing had arrived yet, but now actually the date will change, and now it's like 7 days after order.
Yeah, so all the stock is here now, and everything is being shipped out the door, so do not worry if you have not received your product yet. It is on its way. I will actually ask if anyone in the first batch of orders, anyone received a coffee mug that doesn't look like your design, get in touch with us. For some reason, one mug has snuck in that wasn't our design, and it wasn't our fault either.
No, we didn't. We got, obviously, when it comes in big boxes, and you check them, make sure everything's good. But we didn't check every single mug that we packaged because they come in a box, and somehow, like Daryl said, there was somebody else's mug in there.
It was a coffee bean house in Liverpool.
Yeah. So fortunately, the one that we know is a mistake
was a previous guest of ours, Sarah. Yeah. We apologise.
So we know her, but if anybody else, then just let us know and we'll get another one out to you.
It's no stress. We'll get another one out to you.
No problem. So as Daryl would have told you, well, actually, that we had an interesting guest on our show 1 week ago, which was my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl and my dad gave you an interim show because I was in Nepal, which was, a pretty awesome trip, and you're going to hear all about that now because that is what this podcast is about. Right at the end, probably about a day or 2 days before I flew back home, we sat in this outside foyer area of the hotel, myself, Simon and Matt, the other American hunter who was there, and we talked basically about the experience that we'd had in the previous 3 weeks. Mind-blowing like nothing else I've ever done, and I've been fortunate enough to hunt in a variety of places around the world, but very, very unique. Great people, great country, great place, and it was tough. Yeah, probably one of the hardest sort of extended hunts I've ever done, and part of that was due to the altitude.
Do you think I would have made it up there with my leg?
I think you probably wouldn't have made it off the helipad, Daryl. No, it was, we landed at 10,000 feet, went down to 8,000 feet at base camp, and then we topped out.
How high is Everest base camp? 18,000?
18 something.
So you made it to 16?
I made it to 16, yeah. And actually, I just heard the other day, a friend of ours was in Nepal the same time as me, and he's home now, and they were supposed to do a summit which was 18,000. It wasn't base camp, but it was a summit at 18,000. And he didn't quite make it, and I think a few other people on that trip didn't make it, and just purely for the altitude sickness.
I never thought it would affect you as much as you said it would.
No. I mean,
I thought it was just people being weak.
No, I promise you. I mean, I was perfectly capable and able to do stuff every day, but
it just felt sick.
I spent 5 days with a headache.
Yeah.
Every morning I woke up and I had this incredibly stiff neck, like when you sleep on the sofa and your neck is like cricked up and you wake up and you can barely move. That's how I woke up every single morning that we were at the top camp at 14.
Yeah, not very nice.
So popping ibuprofen and paracetamol to wake up.
So you'll notice in this show that it's outside, so you can hear birds, dogs, horns. I think that's about it.
Yeah. We were just...
It's just in the background. It's quite atmospheric. It's a bit like the one they did in Sweden.
Yeah. That was the last time Simon was
You can hear the really creaky cabin. Well, this one is similar, but you can hear the bustle of Nepal.
Yeah. We were just outside the sort of main area of it. You walk for about 20 minutes, and you were in the hub of a
It
place
makes you
called
feel
Tamil.
like you're sitting on the table with you.
Well, we were sitting around the table.
Yeah.
And somewhere towards the end, I don't know why, but the staff in the hotel decided that they needed to, at that moment in time, come and put cushions on all the seats in the outside area that they obviously bring in overnight so they don't get damp. And literally, as we're recording, I'm holding the podcast with the big fluffy on top in my hand. I had to stand up for them to put the cushion underneath my bum, and everyone around the table had to do it. So I think you hear a little bit of that somewhere towards the end as well. So yeah, you're going to hear all about that. It was a cool trip. Check out our social media. I haven't posted that many pictures yet, but a few.
We're going to be putting more up.
I will now.
Over the next on Instagram and on Facebook as well.
And the bonuses. I was there because I was filming it. So I have no details about when the film's going to be out yet, but you will find out on the podcast sometime at the start of next year.
We're in the know of when it's going to be made.
Yeah.
Because we're making it.
Where you can watch it, because it's going to be something else. Very, very few people have hunted there. And as far as I know, very few people have filmed it, and only one other professional production company have filmed there.
That's cool.
As in the hunting area that we were in. So we're one of two, which is incredibly cool. Anyway, two other things before we get into the podcast. We are going to be at a night vision demo with Scott Country International on the 8th of November in Perthshire. I can't remember exactly where
I think it's further south than that. I think it's...
Do you want to look that up?
I think
while
it's in
give
the
the rest of the details. It's
swear.
not in the borders. No, it's not in the borders. It's near Trockery, by Dunkeld.
Yeah, it's by Dunkeld.
Yeah, by Dunkeld.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you don't need to look it up, Dale, because all anyone needs to do is go onto the Scott Country International website, and you will find the details for the demo
And the Facebook page.
And the Facebook page.
It's open for everyone.
Yeah, and we're going to be there.
Yeah.
Recording a podcast, so if you want to... did I say... Apparently, I said November. It's going to be in December. December the 8th, because we're already well past November the 8th.
Yeah.
Thank you, Beth. So we're going to be there. Lots of cool kit, sort of the latest technology, night vision and thermal, so worth checking it out from that point of view. And also, if you want to come and chat to us, we're going to be recording live with various people, so you have a chance to shoot some...
And we'll get to
shoot some chat.
We'll get to test some gear.
Yeah, maybe we can get to take some home for Christmas.
In fact, no, I'm not sure. It might not coincide fully, because we're going to be doing an extra show in December like we did last year, because it was quite a popular show and we had a lot of emails after it, and it was kit we recommend for Christmas. So we're going to bring it out next week, which is the start of December, which means that if you like any of the kit we're recommending, you have time to order it for yourself.
Yeah, the week today we're going to try and do a product.
And just like last year, these are generally products that we have purchased ourselves or we just use because we like them. That's as simple as that. No sponsorship involved.
Oh, we've been in a lot of different environments in the last 12 months, so I'm certainly going to pull out some of the kit that I took to Nepal and tell you what worked there. And also, I'll probably talk a little bit about, when I'm talking about the kit, about the actual environment and variability of the environment there and how we use kit. So Daryl will get his thinking hat on as well and pick up some other things. So I think one of the things is going to be first aid.
I think first aid, that'll be one. And boots is 100% going to be another.
Yeah, and some clothing.
So yeah, we're gonna go from your feet to the top of your head.
Yes, and I have one hat, which is my favourite.
So we will cover that.
We have a competition winner from... No, we don't have a competition winner.
We do have a competition winner.
We do.
From last week's competition.
Sorry, we do. And Daryl's going to tell you what it is.
So this was running for the week, and we had, I think, over 300 entries, 300 or 400 entries between Facebook and Instagram. So thank you very much. We had over 100 in the first 6 hours, which was crazy. And this was to win our little package put together by Scott Country, and this was for the Silent Crush. It was the Wild Game Trophy Cam or camera trap, and then it was the Kenai jumper and 2 caps as well, and it was very popular. And
quite a package.
Yeah, it is quite a package. I think I priced it at over £200. I think it was 220. It's hard to, you can't put a value on a cap. That's the problem.
I know.
Everyone likes a cap
because you can't always get these. Yeah. And this is going to be perfect timing for Christmas.
Exactly. So Jace Price, and you were picked on Facebook But we will put a link on Facebook for everyone to listen, and you can find out if you want or not. And like everyone else, for this one, we'll actually give you a shorter period of time to pick this up. I think not.
Otherwise, it's going to roll over.
Not a month. I think it'll be
a week. It's going to have to be a week in order to get it out for Christmas.
To get it out for Christmas. So we'll give you a week, and if you do not listen to this in a week and message us, then we will pick the next person that entered the competition.
So it's just going to be bad luck, I'm afraid. But it's that time of the year, people want stuff for Christmas.
and we have 400 people to pick from.
So we're not sure. So that is that. We have a new competition for this month, but we also have a completely separate one, which is a ticket giveaway. You will have heard us talking about us going to be at the Northern Shooting Show next year. I am super, super looking forward to it. Not only are we going to have a whole bunch of our products, all of our T-shirts are going to be there, mugs, some extra stuff. We're 100% going to have our coffees ready for then. We've just confirmed that we're going to be set up.
Coffees?
Yes.
This is the first time everyone's hearing about this.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Well, I think we did mention it maybe a year ago.
This is happening.
Yeah, because I think we're almost settled on how we're going to deliver this. So we're going to have some coffees, but we'll tell you more about that later.
Bags of coffee for people to buy.
Yep. We are going to be set up in our massive 15-man canvas tent that we use for our wilderness hunts, which we've actually just finished one. I'll see if I can remember and tell you a little bit about that before we get into the show. So I don't know exactly where in the show yet. We're still working that out, but you're not going to be able to miss us. And of course, and very importantly, we are launching, or already have launched, the very first hunting film festival in the UK, and it's going to be premiering on the Friday night of the Northern Shooting Show, which is the night before the show actually begins.
So that's basically when everyone's just finished setting up.
Yep. All the information for actually entering the film festival is on our website, thepacebrothers.com. But what we're going to do is have a short list of our top picks of the films and show them in a cinema theatre within the grounds on the Friday night. There's going to be about 80 people there, and we have tickets to give away to you. You will also be able to purchase tickets if you're not lucky enough to to win some, because you're going to be able to win some through us.
It's a very small number of people that will be able to purchase them.
Yes. And the money's going to be going towards a conservation project.
Yeah.
So, yes, we have a pair of tickets to give away, and all you're going to have to do for that is go over to the DNA Film Festival Facebook page. DNA Film Festival Facebook page, and look at the top post on there, and you will see how you enter. It'll be a sharing or tagging type affair, and we'll pick someone at random.
We do ask that if you do enter the competition, please make sure you are around to go.
Yeah, on the Friday night.
On the Friday night.
So that we don't have to try and give them away again.
Yeah.
It's going to be cool because it's such a small number of people. There's going to be a lot of editors and industry people there, aside from the fairly limited number of tickets for the general shooting public. But it's going to be super exciting.
Okay, are we almost?
No, we need the competition for this podcast, which is a set of interchangeable lens Smith Optics shooting glasses. And for that, again, check out the social media, Instagram and our Facebook page. And what we're going to ask you is, what essential kit can you not live without? So we're going to give you one of ours with a picture, and you just comment or leave a picture below and tell us what the one item is that you can't live without in the field, and we will pick somebody in the next show.
Yep.
Shop.
We mentioned shop.
Well, we mentioned the shop, kind of, haven't we?
Yeah, but we can mention it again. If you would like to purchase anything from our shop, then all our products are now in stock.
They are. You can probably hear rustling in the background, and that is stuff from the shop being packed to go to the post office this afternoon.
Yep, it is. So I think for the United Kingdom, it's about the 20th to 21st of December to get your orders in time for Christmas. For the rest of the world, it's about the 14th. So if you are from the United States or in Europe, because that's where the most of our orders come from, then you have to put in your order by the 14th to kind of guarantee it's going to be there in time for Christmas.
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to mention was that we have one space left in a hunt in January because someone had to pull out at the very last minute. Everything was booked up and has been booked up for months. The 19th to the 21st of January, there is one space left for a wilderness hunt. We've just put up some pictures from the hunt that completed a couple of days ago. It was awesome. The 4 guys were great. We had some pretty extreme conditions, so much so that we had to take the Land Rover out of the hill early because we were worried about it getting stuck in the snow, and we've had bucket loads of snow since. It was pretty... I have to say, in terms of snow, it's probably some of the most extreme snow conditions I've actually hunted in. We couldn't work out where camp was at one
point. As the
point.
Norwegians are chuckling.
Yes, they were. But true for me.
Yeah.
So if you want to look into that, again, details on our website, thepacebrothers.com. And for currently, you will find them on our website. The cost per person is £1,400. But if you are a podcast listener, and because we've had someone pull out at the very last minute, let us know via email that you are a podcast listener, because you will have listened to this, and we're going to give away the next one for £1,100. So a good discount. Just let us know on email that you've listened to this message.
Hey, and you get to take the meat home.
Yes, you do. I'm pretty sure it tells you in the
Yeah, it does.
Everybody has a carcass built into the price. So.
The guys had so much meat that just gone they couldn't fit it in their freezer properly.
Yeah, we just heard from them today. They seem to have a good time, and they've tagged us in a whole bunch of stuff on Instagram.
Yeah,
we'll start sharing some of their pictures.
You'll start seeing pictures very soon on Instagram of that.
And that is it for...
I feel like there's more because the last 2 months have kind of blurred by.
Well, I haven't even been at home for the last month.
You haven't been at home. I sat on the sofa for 3 weeks, kind of spaced out. So I feel like the podcast, I feel like I haven't spoken to the podcast listeners properly because I can't even remember what's been going on.
You probably weren't even quite coherent when you put the last one together because you were so high on your antibiotics. No. But we're going to be speaking to you again in a week's time with our product show. So if we have forgotten anything, we can tell you in 7 days' time.
I want to say we are thinking about bringing out car stickers for the podcast listeners. And so basically the idea was, local radios in fact, they probably still do it.
I think TFM
does it. Where we live.
Yeah,
where we live. TFM does it where it's the car sticker, and they would... once a month, if they were round town, one of the presenters was around town, they saw someone with a TFM car sticker, they won, I think it was £1,000. We're not giving away £1,000, but
unless we get a new generous sponsor that wants to give us lots of
if
chunks of £1,000.
If there's a new generous sponsor that wants to give away £1,000 at a time, let us know. But my point is, we want to give car stickers away, and the point is that if we go to game fairs or we're just driving up and down the country, that there'll be a whole bunch of people with the podcast stickers. If you think this is a good idea and you'd be interested, let us know. Email us, podcast@paceproductionsuk.com.
We'll try to get that sorted.
And we'll give them away for free. In fact, maybe just pay for the postage. It'll be pennies.
Yeah.
We'll make it so it is as cheap as possible to get them out to everyone.
Yeah. Or we'll have them at shows so you can pick them up for free.
Yeah, so we'll have them free at shows, and then maybe just kind of postage cost, which will probably be 50p.
Yeah.
It'll be nothing.
Yeah,
or we'll give them out with orders as well.
Ah, that is
a good
idea.
We'll give them out orders.
So that gives you an incentive to buy stuff.
And guys, I'm not saying you need to buy loads and loads from our shop, but you should. We do give a percentage to charity. It also helps support us doing things like this, the podcast. It really does.
It does. It helps boost our ability to bring you great guests.
Yeah, and our postage costs are fixed. So regardless of how much you order, especially for the guys in the United States, guys and girls, because we've had guys and girls ordering in the United States, the more you order, the postage doesn't go up or down because it's very complicated working out postage. So we kind of just have this kind of fair postage scheme.
Yeah. We try and make everything as affordable as possible.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we're done. You can hear from us in 2 weeks. Enjoy this show. This is going to turn out to be quite a long podcast, but there's 3 of us around the table, including me.
It is very interesting.
Well, Daryl just listened to it today. So.
I wasn't there, and I've just listened to it, so I enjoyed it.
Matt, Simon, welcome to the Into Wilderness podcast. Simon, this is the second time you've been on, and the last time you were on, we were also in a kind of similar situation where we had just finished a rather spectacular hunting experience, Matt, this is the first time you've been on, so thank you very much for joining us. We are currently sat in the middle of Kathmandu in Nepal, which is why, for the people listening, you can hear that in the background, horns and lots of other commotion. We've just returned from, 9-10 days in the mountains, Simon?
I think it was 8 nights and 9 days.
Yeah.
So yeah, meant to be 11, but weather forced us to come back early by a couple of days.
Nepal is not necessarily a destination that most people would think of for hunting. Simon, just explain what's available here and what the draw was for you to put this hunt together.
I think what's here is, probably the most challenging environment in the world. You've got the tallest mountains in the world in the Himalayas, and you've got some very, very unusual species that live at extremely high altitude. So a friend of mine came here a couple of years ago, and since then I've been looking to plan my own trip out here. I think as a hunter or an adventurer, this is probably about the pinnacle of where you can go with a hunting expedition. And it is an expedition, it's not just a hunt, it is a lot more than that. There's a lot of preparation and there's a lot of support you need on the ground here to effectively get the job done. So I think this is one of the ultimate destinations to come hunting. It's not a destination that a lot of people come to, so there's not much information out there about it, which adds to the allure for me. The kind of mystique, and going where others have not gone is quite exciting, and there's not many destinations like that in the hunting world now, so that was definitely part of it.
And what about you, Matt? We're going to talk in a little bit about the kind of species that we were hunting. You really enjoy sheep hunting. You're from North America, but what was the draw here? I mean, you have so much hunting in the States. Why come all the way over to Nepal?
Kind of like Simon said, I think it's the next step maybe for mountain hunters in regards to elevation and the physicality of the hunt. That's one thing I think that makes you a little anxious coming into this hunt.
It was for me anyway, yeah.
Yeah, you can be in great physical shape, but you truly do not know how you'll be affected by the elevation. I did quite a bit of training leading into this hunt, and I still felt it. It was actually quite tough on the third day, but yeah, it's kind of a stair-step effect. I've done some hunting in Azerbaijan and kind of saw the steepness of those mountains and elevation, and this would be kind of your next step, I guess you could say. But yeah, that was the allure for me, is just testing myself, kind of the next test there, physically and mentally. So,
and how? Tell the people listening a little bit about the hunting that you've done in the States for sheep, just to paint a picture, because especially in the UK, where most of our listeners are, they won't really have a concept of what sheep hunting is about, and then compare that to what we were doing here.
I've been fortunate to have hunted all 4 sheep in North America, and of the 4, they live in very different areas, very different terrain. The Dall sheep being, I hunted that one in the Northwest Territories. More of, I wouldn't say rolling hills, but lower elevation, not a lot of vegetation. And then, of course, the Rocky Mountain Bighorn there is close to the Canadian and the Canada and U.S. border. That hunt, a little bit steeper, cover a little bit more miles there in a day, just because the elevation isn't as bad. And then, of course, you have your Desert Bighorn, which hunted there in Mexico. It's quite hot and dry, and that hunt really tests you physically as well. In the area where we were, put in a lot of miles every day with a lot of high temperatures. So yeah, it's quite, each of the 4 offers a unique experience. But yeah, this one here is very different in the fact that the elevation is just so much higher. Sometimes 3 times the height and elevation of what you might see in North America.
I'm going to go around the table now and talk about how it affected each of us, but what were the symptoms, and how did the actual altitude affect you here in Nepal? I mean, I think we were all okay up to around sort of 10,000, and then we started to sort of see effects of that. So that people can understand how you feel.
I had some concern coming into this hunt with the climate change, coming from going to such a dry environment. I have sinus issues, so on day 1, when we took the chopper in, I got a slight headache, and I just chalked it up as, hey, sinus issues. Well, it continued to day 2, and oh, no big deal, it'll go away. Well, then I think day 4 is when the headache really, I think we were at 14,000 feet at that point.
14.3 or
14.3.
Was that Camp 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 14.3,
Yeah.
14,300 feet. So
We landed around 10,000 feet, dropped to 8, and then within 3 days we were at 14,000 feet. And the morning I woke up to make, I guess, my first stalk at a blue sheep, we covered 2,000 more feet that morning. And at that point, when I got in position to start glassing and we had spotted a band of rams, I really started to feel it. I knew, all right, this is going to be a rough day, really rough day. And I was fortunate to harvest one the same morning, and then on the way down is when it really hit me, I got really nauseous. I kind of toughed it out when I saw you guys.
Because we were back at camp.
Yeah, you guys were at camp, and as soon as you left, the rapid increase in elevation and then the rapid decrease back to camp within 2 or 3 hours really got me. Nauseousness. I vomited a few times, but I guess that's just part of the hunt and part of the challenge that you're willing to pick up and take. So
I know that. I mean, the 3 or 4 days when we were up high, I was never firing on full cylinders. Every morning I woke up, I had a headache, and I managed to alleviate it with a little bit of chemical help with the paracetamol or ibuprofen. But Simon, you had a sort of similar experience with the ups and downs of coping with the altitude. Just talk people through that over the period of landing until we left.
yeah, so we landed at about 10,000 feet in the helicopter, and on the first day we walked down to about 8,000 feet. So we dropped 2,000 feet in elevation. And at that point I knew that maybe I should have done a little bit more preparation and it was going to be much tougher. But I didn't know whether it was fitness or altitude at that point, so it was quite deceiving. I didn't know. I felt out of breath a lot, and it was just a struggle to pull down enough oxygen to replenish the muscles when you've been burning them. Even downhill, you require quite a lot of oxygen, and lactic acid builds up around your knees and in your calves. Day 2 was brutal. We climbed 4,500 feet in a day, and it was only 4 miles travel, but the height was 4,500 feet, and we're talking not just trekking, we were climbing cliff faces. Fall and die was a very apparent danger. I think if you slipped, at any moment, it was very, very hazardous.
It's no exaggeration. It really was.
Yeah, there was no safety climbing ropes. But then you're watching, and we'll probably come on to this, there were 26 Sherpas with us to move the camp around, and they had things like pelly cases on their heads, and they were climbing up the same terrain. But then I guess if you're born in that terrain, you learn how to move around it, plus the altitude. They've probably got a much higher hemoglobin count than we have, which helps move oxygen around the bloodstream. So I was physically very, very tired on day 2, and again I didn't know if it was altitude or whether it was just fatigue, but I actually felt emotionally really battered as well by the end of that day, and I thought to myself, have I bitten off more than I can chew? Am I actually capable of doing this? And I had a lot of soul searching on that first night, because it was truly punishing. It probably was a bit of altitude, a bit of fitness. I'll come on to what happened the next day, which cheered me up quite a lot. But we then, we hunted a Tahr the next morning, which was very fortuitous. It was right outside where we'd put camp. So
explain what happened that morning, because it was the really strange thing about really the start of that hunt is what you and I both heard during the night.
So we heard, I've hunted Tahr before in New Zealand, so I was familiar with the sound that they make, which is, if a roebuck for the UK listeners barks, for a US listener, the whitetail make a snort wheeze. For Nepalese listeners, there's like a chirping sound that the Tahr make.
Sounds like a bird.
It sounds like a bird, yeah. And if anyone's hunted sheep or goat, they might be familiar that they make that kind of strange, quite high-pitched whistling sound, which you could mix up for a bird. We heard that in the night, and I was sort of like in and out of like weird altitude consciousness and body battered from the day before. And we got up at 5 a.m. before it was light, and we were going to leave under head torches to go and have a look for some Tahr. And the head guide, man, came over and was like really overexcited because there were a group of Tahr literally 200 yards away from where we'd put our camp. So it was just, you know, I mean, in hunting, especially in these difficult terrains, you have to take the chances when they present themselves to you. So the hunt was on literally the second that we got out of our tents. The camp was waking up, and so you had like cooks and other people kind of getting ready for the day and clanging pots and stuff, whilst we're all like in the middle of a stakeout for some tahr just outside our tent. So there was like pressure, and as the light came up, the tahr saw us and moved around the mountain, which wasn't, you know, an easy stalk by Scottish comparison. It was, you know, boulder fields which were 6 to 10 feet high, and it was, again, it was a climb, not a scramble, to get to where they'd been. We went round there again. Altitude was playing a part. Every 3 or 4 steps I made, it was kind of absolutely exhausted, and then it took longer to replenish the oxygen.
Because we hadn't really acclimatised at that point. We just arrived.
I mean, it was bam, straight into it, and I managed to. The head guide charged off like a Tahr himself to see where they'd moved to, and we got round the corner to where they'd gone into sort of like a little bit a lie of dead ground, and I could see the mature bull, which was a fabulous 12-year-old mature bull. I mean, it was, you know, we were gifted that opportunity. It was a fabulous opportunity. The light was just coming up. I was feeling, you know, a bit emotional from the day before, and just very emotional to be in the Himalayas, and I was able to put in a good shot, killed him, you know, cleanly straight away. It was only about 100 yards again in the terrain. That's very, very unusual, but you've got to take these chances. And it was a beautiful, absolutely what I'd always dreamed of, shooting a 12-year-old bull Himalayan Tahr, and I think they only get to 13 or 14. So he really, and that's very old. So he was absolutely at the kind of zenith of what I want. Absolutely. And you know, we're literally then sort of watching, you know, over a Himalayan range, the sun come up, and it was a really special moment. Actually, it's probably one of the real highlights of my hunting career. I felt very, you know, blessed to be in that scenario, and we'd earned the right to have the shot on the animal. It was a tough hunt, you know, wasn't particularly tough that morning, but you have to take into account everything that happened the day before as well.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have shot Himalayan Tahr, but very few people have actually shot them in the Himalayas. That most people's mind will actually skip to New Zealand.
Yeah, and you know, not to do down New Zealand, I've shot one in New Zealand myself, and it was a fabulous experience. But you know, it's like shooting a muntjac in the UK. They're not from the UK, and you know, wouldn't it be special to shoot one where they actually, that their habitat that they evolved in, and this is where they evolved, not just were put there, somewhere that they genuinely evolved. Now, interestingly, they spend more time in the trees than people would think, and they don't spend. All the classic pictures of Tahr in New Zealand are them out on snowy peaks. That's not actually the habitat that they're in. They're actually more further down in the forest and in the jungle. So that was something that, I mean, for a picture opportunity, it's great to get them on the top of a hill, which I did. They were what the guides called connection time, which we'd refer to as the rut time, and they were, or the roar in New Zealand, they were high and, you know, poking about and enjoying each other's company, shall we say. So they were out of the trees, and they only issue 10 licenses a year in Nepal. So there's
a pretty small number of people that get a chance.
Yeah, I mean, look, in the last 10 years, less than 100 people have shot Tahr, so in the Himalayas. So yeah, I feel extremely privileged. I mean, it's a real, an amazing thing to have done, so it's not lost on me.
Just talking about seeing them in the trees, I think one of the reasons that we were discussing it on the way up is we were all quite surprised how high the tree line was here.
Yeah, way higher than in Europe.
Yeah, unusual for us to see that.
You go to the French Alps, and I've been fortunate enough, I think I've hunted a dozen times in the French Alps now. The tree line is much, much lower. And I've hunted the Swiss Alps and the Bavarian Alps. It is much, much lower, but here the snow line and the tree line seem to be much higher up. I think maybe, and we've discussed it and debated it, we're closer to the equator here, so the temperature is higher because we're closer to the equator, and it's only because of the altitude that you get the cold weather. So actually Nepal's quite warm. It never really goes below freezing.
We're sitting in t-shirts outside Kathmandu right
now. And as a result of that, you get, Kathmandu, which is what's the elevation? 4,000 feet, something like that.
About that.
It never really gets below freezing here, even in the winter. So it's, and it gets up to about 20 every day. So that's, again, I guess because it's closer to the equator, and once you get up high, the only reason it gets colder is because of the extra elevation.
Yeah. Matt, Simon kind of alluded, or I don't know, or it was one of you, I can't remember now, we're talking about the number of people who were there to help us, the porters, and everyone else, and the cook, and who basically supported what is an expedition. And it maybe sounds, I mean, how many were there in total? Did we decide how many?
26 plus us, so we had nearly a group of 30 on the hill.
And it sounds from the outside, 30 people supporting a hunt, almost ridiculous. Why would you need 30 people? Most of the stuff you've done in North America is you and a guide, if I'm not mistaken, so it's kind of like self-supported, you're carrying your own food. And it maybe would make people think that it's not difficult because of that. Having experienced both ends of the spectrum, can you maybe explain to people why it's necessary to have that whole team in place to hunt in a place like this?
Well, first, they make camp very, very comfortable, from dining tents to a toilet tent to a cook tent. And then, of course, we each had our own individual, was that a 3 or 4 man tent? So it's quite comfortable, which is nice on such a physical hunt like this. As far as 26 go, I think what were there was a cook, an assistant cook, and probably 3 or 4 more helpers there. And what I did notice is that yes, there were quite a few there, but they all had their own job. They all worked.
There was a hunting team, there was a camp team, there was a cooking team, and it was definitely, you weren't being weighted on hand and foot. I think, reflecting on it, it would have taken us 3 times the amount of time if we'd gone on our own.
Sure.
So, and we would have been in massive danger. So it was the safety net more than anything. It's such a hostile environment that 26 people is there as a safety net to look after you more than anything. And although it might sound quite decadent and a bit Edwardian to take an expedition of nearly 30 people into the Himalayas, and it is. Let's not beat around the bush. It is quite decadent to do that. But I think if you didn't do that, firstly, you'd possibly end up dying, and secondly, if you didn't die, it would take you a month to get the animals. So,
yeah. And then on the actual stalk, there were 3 guys with me. How many were with you on the actual stalk for your sheep?
Yeah, you had a guide to get the animal out. You had a scout, and then you had the guide. Yeah. And the scout and the guide were working together to locate animals. Again, if you're doing that on your own in an environment you didn't know, at altitude, with all the other variables that were being thrown at us on a daily basis, like boulder fields and other things, I just don't think it would be possible. So,
well, I think one point that really sets the North American mountain hunting apart from this is that in North America you're able to move light and fast. I think here you can move light, but you can't move fast, and so it's just a totally different type of hunting, and it's.
But how amazing was it to have that cultural experience as well? We lived with a group of Sherpas for 8-9 days. That is, from my point of view, these are people that go up to Everest Base Camp and Camp 1 and Camp 2 on Everest. Tech, one of our favourite Sherpas there, had some awesome stories about helping climbers go up Everest. So
it's incredible, that, isn't it?
Yeah, and just being around those people, it wasn't this. And I'd hope people look at it. It wasn't really about the hunt. It's about the experience and the adventure. I mean, pulling the trigger is wonderful, and it's a reason to be in the mountains. But the cultural interface with the Sherpas and the Nepalese people has been really wonderful, and that's been as big a part of the experience as the hunt itself.
That's right. In regards to Tech, I mean, such a gentle and humble servant, I guess.
Very happy to help.
Yeah, very
always
happy.
A smile on his face.
And then, toward the end of the trip, you find out that this guy goes back and forth between base camp and all the way to Camp 2.
Camp 2, yeah.
Back and forth through the Kumbh Ice Fall, which is very hazardous. But such a great guy.
Yeah, and we flew in by helicopter, hour and a half from Kathmandu into the Dorpatan Hunting Reserve, which is a former royal hunting area. It's the only area you can hunt in Nepal, which is fascinating in its own history. But it took us an hour and a half to fly by helicopter into the area. The Sherpas, it will take them a week, 7 days to walk back from that area to Kathmandu. So, that's when our hunt finished, they had another 7 days worth of journey to go. But that's normal. People in in Nepal are very used to long journeys, and they judge
the culture.
Yeah, they judge things by days. Like, how long will it take to get there? Not like 3 hours, 3 days. Yeah. They judge everything by the amount of days you need to walk. So,
Matt, I think we mentioned Blue Sheep already. A lot of people there were light bulbs going off in their head when they heard Blue Sheep, because to be honest, I had probably read it somewhere, but I didn't even know what a Blue Sheep looked like until I started to look in for this trip. When did you identify with Blue Sheep and the sort of the history of it? And obviously you don't get them in North America or very few other places in the world.
You know, there were a few publications in the U.S., Grand Slam magazine, and I think I had seen some stuff there on YouTube, a little bit here and there. And then a guy from Alaska, Cole Kramer, which some guys listening probably are familiar with, he was here last year, and he gave me, actually he was here this spring, gave me quite a bit of info there, and then the group that I went to Azerbaijan with had mentioned it as well, and so it just kind of got me intrigued about it, and I kept doing a little bit of research here and there, and it's such a unique mountain experience that, you know, I told myself, hey, if I get the chance, you know, I need to take it.
Simon, the Blue Sheep has had a little bit of an allure for you. What is it?
Well, it sounds a bit like it's from Lord of the Rings, really. Yeah. We're going to the mountains for the blue sheep. You know, it does. It's something. It's the highest altitude species that you can hunt. So Marco Polo tops out about 15,000 feet, and blue sheep go up to 16 and more. So I think as a physical challenge and a mental challenge, that's what I felt was appealing about the species, was that it was, you know, as a ovis or capra hunt, this is the highest you can go, and I think that definitely makes it very exciting. The animal itself, peculiar looking thing. It's sort of half goat, half sheep. You know, it has a sort of gerbily head. It has a very strange horn formation. They don't look like sheep horns, but they don't look like goat horns either. It's a very strange looking creature. Markings on the animal, they've got a very beautiful kind of black line down their side, down their flank. And yeah, I think they're just very hardy. And then incidentally, their predator is the snow leopard. So
we were in snow leopard country.
We were in snow leopard country. So, and the guides regularly see snow leopards there. So, you know, someone said to me that Tahr and blue sheep in Nepal were quite easy animals to hunt because not many people hunt them. That was not true. Not many people might hunt them, but
they get hunted. Yeah.
Yes, they get hunted, and there's eagles, and there's jackals, there's other things there, and the snow leopard is a formidable predator. And you know,
surprisingly, well, I say surprisingly, but surprisingly towards humans, we were told that they're quite aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, most cats are quite sort of shy and will run away from man, but apparently these boys will come at you. So
we didn't see any.
We didn't
sadly,
see any. Yeah. So although one night when we were at Camp 3 at 14 and 14.3, I think it was, some of the Sherpas decided that 2 snow leopards had come into camp and raided camp that night. On investigation, it was a group of 5 jackals. So yeah, it's funny how these things get exaggerated. I mean, the Sherpas are very spiritual people. So
they are, yeah.
You know, which was, you know, that was another lovely thing. They're also warm and you know, they're either Hindu or Buddhist, and they all rub along very nicely together. There's no friction at all. Everybody seems to be, you know, wanting to help each other out, and there's a very sort of tender caringness in camp. But with that spirituality, there's sort of things get exaggerated from some jackals to 2 snow leopards, which was quite funny.
It was, and we talked about this on the way out. It's when you have such a long period of time when you're away from the comforts that we enjoy in everyday life, it's very easy to kind of rub people up the wrong way or have little fallouts, disagreements. But it was just a camp situation that just flowed, and I think partly the people there, but also the way that they put it together and how helpful they were, the porters and the Sherpas and everyone else.
I think it just be hard to be upset with someone there. Everybody was nice, and the 3 of us rubbed along really well together. And you know, it was a high pressure, high stress situation. I would say environmental stress, no other stress than that. It was you know, physical stress, but you know, they were there to tend to you and make sure you had everything that you needed. Anytime any of us felt like we had any, you know, effects of altitude sickness, there was 3 or 4 people that would almost come and sit and watch you and make sure you were okay.
They're quite attentive to that.
Very much so, and it's not to be. I mean, acute mountain sickness is something that kills people. So they were, and I think they had a hunter last year that got it so badly they nearly had to evacuate him, and that was at 12,500 feet. We went up to 16. So it's something that needs to be taken seriously, and they do take it seriously. It might sound a little bit cavalier the way that, you know, we climbed cliff faces and so on. For them, that's everyday life. For us, we've ironed risk out of our everyday lives. For them, they've got a lot of risk around them. So although to us it seemed quite dangerous, to them it was just another walk in the hills. But you know, in terms of the thing that they, you know, haven't got any control over, which is the mountain sickness. The minute that you mentioned or said or looked off colour or threw up or had a headache, they were right on it, and I think that gave me confidence. We all had global rescue, and if we needed it, there was a big safety piece in the background on all of this. One of the things I'll take away from this is that altitude is very, very tough.
Yeah, I mean, even the head guide who you mentioned, Man, earlier, he even was suffering on one day, not to the extent that we were, but he was feeling the effects of it. And he spent his life up there.
If you go up quickly and down quickly, I think it's like getting the bends. If you come up too quickly, if you've been diving, it's the same kind of thing, but the other way round. Pressure, the air pressure can really give you, a pretty horrendous headache, and leading up to
no oxygen.
Leading up to all sorts of bad symptoms. I quite like the idea of hallucinating. Apparently, that's something we had some
at the extreme end.
Yeah, at the extreme end. You hallucinate and you stop talking sense and you behave drunk, which probably at 16,000 feet might be quite good fun. So I know some of my dreams that I had when I was there. One of my weird dreams was that I dreamt that I had been commissioned to write a piece for Field Sports magazine on the perfect shot for game birds. So I got Kevin Robertson, who wrote the perfect shot, to do a whole piece on woodcock, pheasant, partridge.
That is incredibly bizarre.
It was, but it's so vivid. It's so vivid. But anyway, that was one of my weird high altitude dreams that I had.
Matt, the day that you went to go and hunt your blue sheep was it 1 or 2 days after Simon shot his Tahr?
I think it was 2 days.
2 days after.
Because we transferred
moved,
camp.
Right?
Yep.
And it was an early start. Talk me through that day. I mean, you kind of explained earlier how physically tough it was because of how rapidly you went up. But talk about that terrain for people. Paint that picture so that people can join you on that part of your hunt, because it was quite special.
Yeah.
We saw the day after where you'd been.
Well, if you recall, coming in the night before to Camp 3, you and I made a push there right before dark because some blue sheep were spotted where we were to set up camp. That was also the day that we came up the ridge. It wasn't as steep as moving into Camp 2, but there was a really long pull up that ridge, and it got really cold there when the sun went down. And once we kind of nestled in and glassed a little bit and realized that, hey, there's not a mature ram here, we both kind of looked at each other and said, I don't feel good. And so the plan was made later that night that it would be my turn to go up, since Simon he'd harvested his Tahr the day before. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I've got the energy for this, but hey, it's my turn, I'm gonna go. The next morning, got up around, I guess, 5:30, left right before, about 20 minutes before the sun came up. We were using headlamps there for almost half an hour or so. It was I guess that was the first time that I'd been part of a smaller group during this hunt. It was just 4 of us total, and of course I'm trying to keep up with Man, the lead guide, and like Simon said, grew up in the same mountains there. It was his backyard.
Beast in the mountains.
Oh yeah, and I just can recall him asking me to cut off my headlamp, and I just tried to put one foot in front of the other for, I guess, about 2 hours. And I got to a ridge where he had already gone, the scout had already gone ahead, spotted the band that Man thought was in there. And so then things kind of get a little bit more excited, and so anything you're feeling physically or mentally, it kind of went away there for probably 20 minutes or so.
Adrenaline started.
Yeah, adrenaline started pumping, and all the altitude effects went away slightly. And the ram that we were after kept feeding up the drainage, and we kept trying to get around on him, and finally Man just made the decision, hey, we've got to go all the way to the top, and then we'll come back and shoot back down on him. And so that was done, and we got above them, ranged them at, I'm gonna put this in yards, not meters.
That's fine.
He was ranged at 187 yards, but due to the angle, Man had put me in a nice position, but due to the steep angle, I think after angle compensation, it came back at like 121, the steepest shot I've taken to date. As soon as the shot was made, though, we realized he was down, elevation kicked back in again.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said earlier, it was downhill from there. But it's a great day to be on the mountain, great situation to experience, along with a great guide like Man, who I think will always keep in mind is one of the better ones that we've had.
Yeah.
But it was a great day.
Well, I think we'll talk a little bit about Man at the end, because
Man Two Wives.
Yeah, Man Two Wives. Quite an incredible character. But the day after, no, sorry, 2 days after you shot yours, we were back in the same area and we saw the cliff that you shot yours off, and it was literally a vertical drop on the other side. You must have had to walk back round, did you, to get to the sheep?
Yes,
Yeah.
we did. Which was, at that point, I'm looking for a shortcut to get down, but no, we had to walk around a little bit, so it took quite a while to get to the ram. But
and then we had the privilege of seeing you back into camp, because that all happened pretty quickly. Simon and I had to sleep in that morning.
Yeah,
Simon
they
recovered.
recommended we have a rest day
Yeah.
because of the altitude, and we were both pretty beat up. So they said, we'll take Matt out for a hunt. You guys acclimatised to altitude today, which I have to say at that moment in the hunt I was quite pleased with.
I was too.
Yeah, it's like, we just poked about camp, taking pictures of things all day, which was nice. But yeah, by 7 a.m. I think you were coming back into camp. Within 2 hours you'd done the deal, and you were coming back into camp. I remember seeing you coming back over the crest just outside where that first hill from camp. So with someone
you're
with
thinking I've threw in the towel already.
something's happened, yeah. And then I saw someone with a sheep in a basket. So I knew it was-
Tell people about how they take that off, because at home we're used to putting a roe deer in a roe sack, or dragging a red deer with a rope off a hill. I mean, you're in North America with sheep, you're probably a little bit more used to that, although you're taking off yourself. But it's pretty basic kit that they use to take the sheep off the mountain.
Yeah, it's just a big laundry basket is what we would call it. But yeah, the first time that I've ever experienced, hey, we're going to take the entire animal. We're not going to dress it at all on the mountain. Take the entire animal and
Guts
carry it
in
down.
everything.
Yep. And what do they weigh? 150 pounds, 140 pounds probably.
Yeah, must be.
Yeah, they make it easy. But yeah,
Stick it on their head.
Yeah, and incidentally, they make the wicker baskets out of bamboo themselves.
We saw it.
Yeah, we saw a guy making one of the baskets. They do not have straps like a rucksack that we'd be used to. They have a strap that goes around their forehead, and they basically carry the whole weight on their neck. I mean, it's quite a remarkable feat. And not just the sheep, moving the whole camp around is done. I mean, these boys, I can see why the British Army set up the Gurkha Regiment. They are the toughest people. Forget Iron Man, forget, those other Spartan, tough mudder. These boys
They're
are
real deal, aren't
the
they?
proper tough guys.
And they're small people. I mean, small, slight people.
And they're
just
not
incredibly
stacked.
powerful.
They're not stacked, muscular. They're just and their determination to get the job done. And they wear like plimp soles. We've got mountain hiking boots that you can put crampons on, and these boys have got plimp soles, gym shoes on, tennis shoes, and they move around the mountain as if it's like we're walking on flat ground. It's quite remarkable. With 50 kilos, 50 kilos of weight on their forehead and neck. Just remarkable.
And some of these guys were young.
16-year-olds, yeah.
16 is the
And they would put a lot of us to shame. Well, in fact, I think probably most people in the UK to shame.
Yeah.
Matt, we're going to get on to Simon taking his. I'm almost spoiling it here, but taking his sheep 2 days later. But how did you feel about taking an animal in that situation? I'm sure you, like us, and I was sort of documenting it with Simon most of the time, had to take a little moment, after you take something like that in that environment. How was it for you, that aspect? Because it's more than just a hunt.
Oh, sure. It's like we said earlier, I think we all were learning about blue sheep over the last year and a half, what they are, where they live, that type of thing. It's not about the animal, like we say. It's definitely about the experience. And yes, after the shot was made, I immediately kind of reflected back to Simon 2 days earlier. I saw the emotion, and it reminds you, hey, this is why we do this. It's not about the collection. It's not about the inches or anything like that. It's just about the memories and the experience. And I probably sat there for 5 minutes and just kind of took it all in, took in the sunrise, took in the height where we were. I wasn't able to rejoice and really have a conversation back and forth, just because and kind of broken English. But still, it's interesting how you can still connect despite there
You
being
almost don't need
some...
to say anything.
Yeah, hunters can connect.
Pretty universal language, hunting, isn't it? It transcends language, and you can share a good hunting experience, whatever your colour, language, race, creed, whatever it is. You can level on one thing, and that's a good hunt. And that's quite a special moment.
Yeah. Getting a hug from man at that point was very nice.
Yeah,
cuddling up with a Sherpa.
Yeah, cuddling up with a Sherpa at that altitude, I was not going to turn away.
Simon, the day after, we saw them process the whole sheep in camp, which was a spectacle in itself. Everyone's just so busy doing different aspects.
Well, and having watched the tar being processed,
already.
And watching them drink tar blood, which was something I'd not
forgot to mention that.
So, the Sherpas waste nothing. Every single piece of meat, every morsel, we talk about, cutting off little bits of meat and making sausages. Yeah. There's no meat left on anything. Everything is eaten. But I've seen that before in other places where I've hunted in remote. Meat's an important commodity, and absolutely. They would rejoice in drinking the blood of the tar whilst it's still got body warmth.
We'll have to try and I'll try and stick up a picture, because I know that you took some pictures on the podcast page.
Yeah,
so people can have a look at the drinking of the blood.
Yeah, it was one thing I think my Western stomach that's used to kind of refined sugar and processed meat wasn't quite capable of dealing with. So I decided not to drink tar blood as much as I'd like to have shared in the moment.
I think they would have been willing to share. However, the testicles on all the animals disappeared. They were never offered up. I think they were too much of a delicacy.
Yeah. I mean, I quite wanted a purse made out of the nutsack of my sheep, because he had a good fine pair on him. I think that would be able to fill that with quite a few coins, but they were gone. I don't know what happened with that.
I think man ate them, right?
That's right. That's why I got a little sick. Now that you mention that, I can recall walking up to the sheep, and of course I'm looking at the head and the rings and figuring out the age, and the first thing man does is walk up and grab his nuts and say, "This is a really fine pair of nuts." Well, maybe to you.
There you go. We were looking at the top end. He's looking at the back end.
Yeah, that's right.
Simon, we went out the day after, and now it was pursuit of sheep for you, and that was a tough day.
Herculean day. It was, and actually, as I woke up,
dangerous.
and dangerous. And when I woke up, I definitely had altitude sickness. That was a bad day for me. The morning.
Looked shit, if I may say.
Yeah, no. That morning I wasn't in good shape. Slept badly and had a headache. But if you sleep in a tent and it's cold, you get a headache because your head's cold at night. So there's lots of factors. We were up before sunlight, and it was -5, I would suspect. I mean, the minute you got outside, your water bottle froze up, so it was cold. And if you've got cold around your neck and ears and forehead and back of your neck, you can get a headache. So there's a lot of contributory factors. Plus, I was still shattered from the sort of task. Even though I'd had a rest day, we'd still really pushed it to get where we got to. But thankfully, my dutiful cameraman Byron had brought some headache tablets, which helped to deal with my situation and remedy where I was feeling. And then the sun came out, and that helped lift the spirits. We then we put in a 12-hour day across some of the toughest terrain I've ever been.
And there is only about 12 hours of light.
There is only about 12. Well, we left in the dark and got back in the dark. So I mean, it was a very, very tough day. They found some sheep on the backside of a mountain. Obviously, one area had been disturbed by the fact that Matt had shot his sheep, so they knew there was another area with some sheep in it. So we went round, we kind of traversed a big mountain to get round there. We actually dropped in altitude, and then we went back up to spy into this kind of massive bowl area. There were some sheep there. We followed them for all morning, and then by the time we got to them, it was an immature ram that was with them, 12 ewes and an immature ram. So they then decided it was too dangerous to go back the way. It would be dark by the time we got back to camp. So we'd go over the top of the mountain that we'd traversed.
It wasn't dangerous at all.
So
Simon's face has just dropped right now.
It was probably 1,500 feet of maybe I'd say 1,350 to 15,000 feet of altitude high. So we had to climb 1,500 feet of boulder field, and the boulder field wasn't just a few rocks. It was anything ranging from gravel all the way up to 10-foot boulders, and the whole thing was moving. You could tell every time you put your foot down, you could hear 20 yards away rocks moving, so the whole thing was interconnected like a badly put together set of Lego. And or actually the way that we described it, they were like shelves. So I don't know if anyone is familiar with those fairground coin slots where you've got a shelf that pushes out and there's more coins and eventually a whole stack of coins fall. That's how it felt. You looked up, there were shelves, and you just felt that there were rocks pushing more rocks, and at any moment your time could be up. Genuinely, I was pumped with adrenaline because it was an extremely hostile, kinetic environment, and I felt very frightened by it.
I'll back you up on that. I mean, we've all done some things that are slightly on the edge when you're hunting and you're kind of pushing yourself. You're maybe not evaluating risk the way you would do when you're back at home, but was genuinely dangerous, because you didn't really have much control about what was going on. You just had to put one foot in front of the other and get to the top.
And every single step, if your foot slip, you're going to break your ankle. So not only have you got the whole lot might come down like a house of cards on top of you, you've also got to watch mindfully. Every single step you take is on slippery, big and small granite boulders, some moving, some solid. It was literally, rolling dice. Like, are you going to get through this? Irritatingly and frustratingly, you'd watch the guides, they'd go up it like a bloody blue sheet themselves.
Yes.
And we're kind of like stumbling over everything. Again, they evaluate risk in a different way. If you've grown up in this environment, you can manage the risk.
Threshold's higher, isn't it?
Threshold's higher, and they know that they're going to be okay, and that boulders have never slipped before, but it could, and we'd been around boulder fields for the whole of the week. We'd seen them, and I hadn't seen any slip. We hadn't seen any ground slides or anything. So the chances of it happening were slim, but it was an ever-present reality. So,
and now you have to make sure that your wife doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah, I think I've got some explaining to do when I get back. Oh, everything's going to be fine, darling. There's no risk involved in this hunt at all. But genuinely, there were moments of... so one of the big things for me, and on this day it really clarified in my mind, there are moments when you look at a task in front of you and you see 1,500 feet of boulder, and you just think, and at the top it's almost sheer vertical. You look at it and you think, there's no way I can do that. There's no way
we both looked at each other.
There's no way a human being can do that. It's just not possible. But sure enough, step by step, we made it up there, and we made it up there safely, and there weren't any accidents, and we took our time. And it's amazing if you set your mind to something, what your body can achieve. And taking a very nice philosophical point away from the hunt for me is that you feel good when you've achieved something that you don't think you can do, and I genuinely didn't think I could do that. And there were moments on the hunt where I climbed mountains and I didn't think I'd be able to get up them, and I managed to achieve that. And back in normal everyday life, sat behind my desk, there are mountains for me to climb in my inbox every day and there's mountains for me to climb with some of the clients I work with and so on. But step by step you can get your way through it, and you'll be surprised what you can achieve. So I've got 2 young kids. If I can try and impart some of that learning on them, and I hope one day they want to do stuff like this too, and that they can understand that actually from an experience like this you can become a better person in your everyday life, grow as a better person, and you can become stronger, and you can become mentally more robust from experiences like that. That's awesome. What a great thing to be able to take away from great experience, but also I've developed as a person, I think, because of putting myself in some hardship, which I think is fantastic.
Matt, we're almost on Simon's sheep day now. Just touching on what he was talking about there, you've both got families at home. It's time away from home, and there's also an element of risk. How do you balance that? You've obviously both got supportive wives to be able to have supportive families.
Nearly.
You don't go into details when you plan these things with them. No. I have a wife that is very supportive in this. She knows that I love an adventure, and I think human nature with most of us is, hey, how far can you push the limits as far as the human body, mentally and physically, and that was the draw on this hunt. But yeah, having small kids at home, you do think about it. I mean, this is just natural. But yeah, there were parts of the trail heading up that second day that I thought to myself, hey, this is not the safest place to be by any means. So yeah, just one step at a time. yeah, maybe she won't listen to this.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you look ahead of you and you can be overwhelmed by the task ahead, and that's what I kept thinking is, oh my God, that's 4 hours worth of climbing. How are we ever going to do that? How's my body going to, cope? How have I got the strength in my legs to get me up there? But you just focus on what's immediately in front of you and trust in the guides and that you've got the right support around you. You have to, there's no other choice. And you do get there, and the sense of achievement from doing that is massive. You feel good about yourself because you've overcome something that you weren't sure that you were going to be able to do. And again, when in everyday life when you're a kid, you're constantly challenging yourself, but as an adult, that's all happened. So when do you challenge yourself outside of your comfort zone in normal adult everyday life? Very, very seldom. And so to do this stuff, I think it's really life reaffirming, and I think that's very much so. And I think that's for me as well, another one of the main reasons I like to come and do more remote hunts is that you push yourself, and I think that is good. It just kind of like reboots you and gives you a bit of a sense of perspective on everyday life actually.
I'm conscious of the fact that our guide might be sitting around. I'm just wondering whether we should go and... Has anybody had a message from him?
Not yet.
Our outfitter? Not yet. Okay, if we haven't, then that's fine. We can carry on. We should be able to see him through the window.
The Mountain Buddha.
The Mountain Buddha.
It says
10
more
a.m.
minutes, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So the day after putting in that quite mammoth day, we were back at it, Simon. And we were lucky enough that day Matt was able to join us, so we all got to enjoy the experience of your hunt that day.
Yeah, so just to sort of the precursor to that is that on the way back from our 12-hour day, and it was brilliant, they'd been spotting all day, and I'm like, hey, is that a group of sheep over there?
Yeah,
and I spotted a group of sheep
you.
In some sunlight. I mean, it was just fluky that I saw them, but
15 minutes of light.
15 minutes of light left, and I saw a group, and there were 2 mature rams with them, and they weren't far away from where Matt shot his. Funnily enough, but it was the way that the light fell. They were grazing in the last few minutes of sunlight. So we had a tentative plan for the next day for heading out, but I felt pooped when we got back. 12 hours of pushing it and being scared and full of adrenaline and all that stuff. So yeah, we got back, had a catch up with Matt, and we were delighted that Matt could come along and join us on the next day. I thought I'd wake up feeling really battered. I felt strong. I woke up feeling really...
I felt crap.
Yeah, you felt bad that day. It's funny how it was
weird.
Just up and down, but I felt strong. I felt like I'd finally got my mountain legs. I felt that I was dealing with the altitude, certainly at 14.3, which is the altitude we're at. I was able to replenish the oxygen better than I had done all week. Set off feeling quite good. Within half an hour, we were under headlamps. We'd hit 15,000 feet, and then bam, the headache hit. Suddenly that 700 feet of elevation increase had given me a headache, and I knew it was going to be another tough day. We got to where the sheep had been, or the scout had look over. Probably not far from where Matt shot his, and they'd moved not a bit. They'd moved, a kilometre down the,
which is a long way in the mountains.
Yeah, because it's not a straight line, a kilometre if you look with the binoculars, but to get there it's 3 kilometres because you've got to go down a valley, then back up over a boulder field and around, and all of this is at altitude, and you're just thinking, okay, I've got a long day ahead of me. Maybe we won't even get a chance at these, because they were feeding away outside of the area that we were in. We were already at 15.3, I think it was at that point. We were pretty high, and then we had to drop back down, probably drop 500 feet of elevation. It's all time taking, and then suddenly out of nowhere there's a blue sheep lamb just walking up towards us.
It was like 70 meters away. It was just below me.
Super bizarre, really bizarre. Mummy wasn't with it, Daddy wasn't with it, and we're like, that's really strange. Guides didn't seem to care very much, and I was thinking, the last thing we need to do now is spook the lamb. It runs into the group of adults, and then they're all gone out of the area. But the guides were kind of like, I was like, have you seen the baby? Have you seen the baby? And they were kind of like poo-pooing it as if, it doesn't matter, don't worry about it. Sure enough, we spooked the lamb ran, and it started running towards the adults. So suddenly there's loads of pressure. Now, again, it's like 3 kilometres worth of run towards the adults, but if it's on its own, it's probably from that group. So the chances are that when it catches up with it, it will be spooked, and then the whole lot will take off. So we're then in a situation where the pressure's on, we're all running, it's all a bit tense, everybody's trying to move up to an area. There's lots of sort of weird plateaus of dead ground that we're trying to move over and move up, and I can't keep up with the guides. I'm out of breath because we're at 15 and a half, then moving up towards 16,000 feet of altitude.
Kept ramping up,
and then there's just so many factors at play, and the wind was on our backs, and we knew that we're probably not going to get a chance at these. We got to like the highest point, and then there was a big plateau in front of us, and the guide saw a lamb, and then another lamb, and then 4 in the end, moving around this kind of like this plateau with a sharp cliff
it was like something
drop
out of Middle Earth, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fully Lord of the Rings. The whole place was Middle Earth, and actually it was on its way to Mordor. This was like the bit behind it looked really nasty. Anyway, we knew that this group was the group that we'd seen, and we knew that there was 2 mature males with it in the group, and I got in a good shooting position. I have to say at this point, shamelessly, I'm going to plug product, not because I work with the companies, but I think without that product, I don't think I would have been able to put in the shot that I did. And
very rapid, wasn't it?
Genuinely, we were in a very fast situation where I had to process a lot of information. I'm grateful to all the people that have ever given me any training and the equipment and products that I'm lucky enough to use. I had a Tahr 404 XTC rifle, which is the carbon fibre breakdown rifle, modular rifle. I took it into camp, broken down in a tiny little carbon fibre case, put it together. It was bang on zero, ready to go. I had a pair of the Leica HDB binoculars, and before I left, I'd programmed in the load that I was using, which is the 200 grain Precision Hunter Hornady ELDX, and I'd put the exact load data onto an SD memory card, which I'd put into the binoculars. So the binoculars were good to go with the exact round that I was using. It might sound like this is just going into science fiction, but actually what I'll come to tell you is it made all the difference at the moment. The binoculars at that, I didn't have a ballistic turret on, so I unscrewed the top of my scope cap, knowing that I was going to have to dial. Now, there were variables that I wasn't...
You had it on, it was on 0, wasn't it?
It was on 0. I'd zeroed at 100 in camp, but the reality is I live at sea level, so if I'd zeroed my rifle in the UK, we're now at 16,000 feet, or 4,700 metres, or 800 metres. So barometric pressure is different at that height, and bullets travel differently. The temperature, probably -2, -3. Things happen differently with trajectories in those temperatures. The angle, it was a 17-degree angle between me and where the mature sheep ended up moving out from, and it was 346 metres. So there's all these things happening, and I was fortunate enough that I've practiced with the binoculars enough times. I was able to range the mature male, and literally it moved up on this plateau. It was
just like that.
It was boom. It was there. I had probably 3 or 4 seconds to range it, dial in. I put 16 clicks of elevation onto my scope. The scope I was using was the 1.8 to 12 by 50 Magnus I, fabulous mountain scope. Great balance between light transmission and weight. Really good scope, and even though I didn't have a ballistic turret, I was still able to dial on 16 clicks of elevation. The binoculars had taken into account the barometric pressure, the temperature, the angle, the distance, and it had used my exact trajectory that I'd programmed into it via the SD memory card to tell me 16 clicks of elevation, all in 0.3 of a second. Now, I was then able to concentrate on putting a shot on the animal rather than thinking about holdover or guessing or any of that stuff. I was able with, and we filmed it, so I'm sure if people listen to the podcast, they'll also want to watch it. It literally is 1 second away from walking out of Middle Earth and into Mordor.
Yeah, that was why time was so crucial, because it was like on the horizon of that little plateau, sticking out nowhere.
And it was phenomenal that I had like super bench rest, very comfortable position to shoot from. I shot single shot, and it you'll see in the video, but the ram runs left, and I instantly reloaded because I thought I might have to take another shot, and I was waiting for someone to call where the shot had gone, and then I heard everybody saying he's down, because the recoil of a 300 Win Mag, even with the muzzle brake, I didn't see exactly what had happened, but I'd hit him, probably the best shot of my life. It was just behind the shoulder, halfway up the body, and it had clipped the top of the heart, and it had double lunged him, and that was it, end of. So with all those factors, I have to, without that product, I don't think I'd have been able to. It would have been guesswork, and what it wasn't was guesswork. It was a calculated, accurate shot based on all the variables that had been inputted by me and by the binoculars. And then you've got to say thank you to the rifle for being accurate and the ammunition for doing the job when it hit the, for holding the zero and for doing what it needed to do.
A lot of components to make a shot in those and that kind of environment at that kind of range.
And I was very, very lucky that it all worked out. I've made shots like that before and it hasn't worked out. So just probably the most important shot of my life, it did work out, and I was super, super happy. But it goes to show that people might think of some of the features and benefits of these products as either science fiction or just sales gimmicks. In this situation, they were absolutely vital to me being able to put the shot in that I did. So I'm very grateful that I pick the right products for the hunt, basically.
But importantly, you practice with stuff. If you don't practice with it, it's no use to
and I know that in Europe people look at a 346 metre shot as reckless, and some people do. There's no way you could close it down. Now, I had a 100 metre shot on a Tahr, which is a gift. That's a gift from above in this environment. But the shot on the sheep was quite typical, and actually they can be longer than that. So if you don't practice, you're not going to be in a position to seal the deal when you need to.
Unless you've got weeks to wait to get a closer range.
Yeah.
When we were there for 8-9 days, like we were saying, then the opportunities are fairly far and few between.
And the other thing is, if you make a shot at 200 and you don't make the right shot and you wound it, and you then end up you have to shoot a wounded animal further, you need to be prepared to be able to do that. So, I would suggest anybody that's planning on a mountain hunt, go practice. Go practice at long range, invest in the right equipment. Leica makes a very good handheld rangefinder as well if you can't afford mind you, if you're going on a blue sheep hunt, an extra couple of grand for the best pair of binoculars that you can buy is probably worth doing. And it's a difference between a hunt successful or a hunt failure, I would say, and it's worth the investment, and I got a massive satisfaction from it all coming together. It was a good feeling, really good feeling. So
Matt, Simon was saying he used 300 Win Mag there. You were also shooting 300 Win Mag. Any reason for the caliber choice?
Just a tried and true caliber that I started shooting that gun in 2011, and just very confident with it. And of course, back in the States, a 300 Win Mag will pretty much allow you to harvest any animal there. Maybe a bear might give you some issues, but yeah, 300 Win Mag is the one that I've always shot and will continue to shoot.
Very happy with it.
Yeah.
I was slightly sad that Hornady's new 6.5 PRC wasn't available. No one had chambered it yet, or I know that there are some manufacturers that I have a relationship with that are going to be doing it in the near future. It's basically the popularity of the 6.5 Creedmoor. They've created a short Magnum version, if you're going to call it that. It's 250 feet per second faster than a 6.5 Creedmoor.
Built for the environment we're in.
It is a laser beam. It's a perfect mountain hunting caliber, low recoiling. It's built on a short action, not massive cartridges. There's no belt. That's the one thing I don't like about the 300 Win Mag, is the belt, and that can sometimes give you feed issues. But yeah, I would love to have tried that in the mountains, but sadly
I'll have to go and do it again.
I'll have to do it again. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be another opportunity another time. But I almost brought a Creedmoor with me, actually. I feel that the Creedmoor may be on.
The Creedmoor was on a previous hunt that we weren't on.
Yes, yeah, a couple of guys. Two brought a Creedmoor and shot sheep at long distance with a Creedmoor. So it is a very capable caliber, but that is a caliber you need to understand and learn. You definitely need to have an understanding of what the ballistics are doing, the binoculars, because of the altitude and the angles and so on. I'd say you need that ballistic solution, but the Creedmoor is a very competent caliber. It's it's known as a giant killer in the States. You can kill an elk with a Creedmoor, no problem at all at long distance.
It's been in the States longer than we've had it in the UK, but it's growing in popularity, Matt.
Yes, I hear more and more stories about it. I'm not that familiar with it just because I've been very comfortable with my setup. However, when I get home, I will do some more investigation on it. It's very enticing. Of course, as hunters, we're always looking for new calibers and new toys and that type thing.
A good excuse.
Yeah, that's right.
Simon, just to kind of wrap up your hunt, you took the shot. We saw the ram go down. It was quite a trek over there.
Yeah.
And then you saw it there at your feet.
Yeah, I mean,
that was your blue sheep.
It wasn't about inches. Mine was a mature male, but it wasn't a record book mature male by any stretch of the imagination. But that didn't matter to me. I wanted something that was representative and that will remind me, I'll look at that at home and it will give me a memory of the whole trip. It's not for me about creating I don't know how to say this politely, a trophy room where I'm just showing off things. For me, it's about remembering and respecting, and it's experience. Yeah, it triggers memories. Every time I look at a piece of taxidermy at home, it triggers a memory. I didn't feel as emotional as I did after the Tahr, funnily enough, because I'd kind of probably immersed myself in the environment a bit more. The satisfaction I felt was more than the Tahr. I felt like the Tahr had been really gifted to me. It was quite a lucky scenario. The sheep, I'd really earned it, so I felt proud. I felt a sense of huge fulfillment, and like that was the apex of the hunt. Now it was about getting home safely, getting back, and had the journey home. So it was that was what I went to go and do, and I'd done it. So it was a magical moment, and it's the highest altitude I've ever been on foot. It's higher than any mountain in Europe. It's higher than Mont Blanc.
And we saw the second highest lake in the world.
We saw the second highest lake in the world.
We found out afterwards.
Yeah. So for many reasons, I felt a huge sense of achievement on that. And like I said, there were lots of personal little goals that I'd overcome and achieved to get there. So yeah, really special. The most special hunt of my life. I was very lucky to harvest two wildly different animals in a similar-ish environment. Tahr's a little bit lower, but what a privilege. Nepal is and the Himalayas. Let's not forget we were in the Himalayas. That is not to be forgotten, because it's such a hostile, brutal, yet stunningly beautiful place. I mean, what a privilege. Huge privilege.
Matt, it's obviously left an impact on all of us, I think, being here, but you're thinking to yourself, you need to come back. You haven't even left yet.
Oh, that's right. Simon took.
It's okay. I won't let your wife hear this.
Yeah. Simon took my Tahr permit. No. I see some similarities between American mountain goat and the Himalayan Tahr, and I do have a desire to come back, and of course I've already put that in Sam's ears here. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, such a unique place that it definitely warrants a second visit if you're ever given the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I've hunted in Kyrgyzstan before, very different. Mentally probably as tough, physically definitely not as tough, because you use horses. Anywhere that you use horses, if you're not as physically capable, I mean, do not consider coming on this hunt if you're not physically up to it, because you won't have a good time, and you'll not enjoy yourself. If you are coming, practice. Don't just run, which is what I did, and that's my mistake. I should have been going out and walking in the hills. You need to take some time to go and walk in the hills. That's super important. The guide and outfitter, Global Safaris, guy called Samshar.
Who's going to be here in a second?
He'll be here in a second. Hopefully we'll get a few minutes with him on the phone, on the microphone podcast. He's fantastic. I would highly recommend him. Very professional. Don't feel alarmed by the sort of slight lack of communication. They're just very relaxed people, the Nepalese. If anybody needs to know any information, you can get me on Facebook. I'd very happily share any knowledge about this hunt. I would, if you're a man of little means, save and come. It's awesome. It is really worth it.
But it's actually, compared to mountain hunting in the US, and you've done quite a bit of that, Matt, it's good value here.
Oh, no doubt about it. And we talked about that several times. I mean, in some cases, half the cost of what a sheep hunt would be, or more than half of what a sheep hunt might be in North America. So yeah, not only do you get a great value, you just get a great cultural experience.
Yeah, I mean, I saved for 2 years to come, and it was worth every cent. It was really a fantastic experience. Would I come back again? There are other places I want to go to first. Nepal is awesome. I think I've been lucky enough to get both the species that are available here. I would come back, but I think I'd like to go and explore some other places first. Not because I don't enjoy Nepal, but just because
there's the whole world there.
There's, that's the explorer gene in me, wanting to go and find some other places. But I genuinely don't think, and having spoken to other people and watched Jim Shockey's shows, and being in the hunting industry, I've not heard of hunts that are as tough as this. This is really hardcore. So, it's the altitude, it's the physicality, it's the mental toughness. If you want to really challenge yourself, Nepal's the place to come.
Matt, on the last night, we camped at the helipad where we came in and where we went out, and we were treated to something I haven't actually experienced anywhere else in the world, which was a celebration from everybody involved. And we were dancing around the firelight,
Yeah,
including you.
Which is rare. Such a unique experience when they brought in the mountain cake, which I still don't know how they baked the cake. But,
No, neither do I.
Yeah,
It's probably the guts of the Tahr or something. They probably created
Turned it into flour.
Yeah, some kind of oven, and probably best not to investigate too hard.
Yeah, it was. Hearing them and seeing them come in. I wouldn't say chanting, but singing probably a local song that they all knew was also impressive. They all were singing, not just 5 or 6 of them. But yes, they did pull my leg and get me out there by the fire. I was trying my best Michael Jackson impression for Man, since I know that's his favorite artist from the States. But but I did a very poor job. But no, it was a great night.
They were just so happy to have us all there at the end and it be successful. It was tremendous.
Fantastic way to celebrate and kind of shore up the week and the experience as a whole.
Yeah, and interestingly, it was 3 days hike to get to the sheep area, and it was 3 days hike to get out. It wasn't that it was it required so much commitment to be hunting.
From everyone, yeah.
It's not because we didn't get helicoptered to the place we started hunting, which is often what happens in New Zealand. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's a very different style of hunting. There are people that hike into the backcountry in New Zealand, but often if you're going there as a hunting tourist, you'll get dropped off where you start to hunt from. So it's a different kind of hunting. But we'd done sort of 6-7 days worth of travel just to get hunting, there and back. And so for them to kind of open up to us a little bit, they were a bit reserved, and they were just eminently respectful of us because we're the clients. Some of these guys are earning $5 a day, that's the reality, and so they see us coming in with all our flashy kit and sat phones and this, that and the other, and it must be a bit bewildering for them. But on that moment we all shared that evening,
we were all the same.
Yeah, we shared a moment together and we just enjoyed hanging out and a bit of leg pulling, and it was fun. It was a really, really nice way to kind of wrap up the trip. One thing we haven't mentioned is the benefit to the local community.
Yeah, I was actually and also the guy. I think the story about Man and his history is quite interesting. Just to finish up on that and the benefits.
I mean, the two of us being there as hunters, there were 26 people directly employed as a result of what we were doing. There were 2 government game wardens there, so they
were there all the time.
The whole time, yeah. So for every hunter that's there has to be a game warden, which we paid for to be there. We pay a community support fee for every animal that's harvested, which is given directly to the community to stop them from wanting to poach, to give the animals more value. Even the helicopter that we flew in to the remote area then flew to Kathmandu with some of the villagers who needed hospital treatment. So if you live
like a spin-off of us being there.
Yeah, so we paid for a helicopter in. It was going back to Kathmandu empty. They filled it with people that needed to go to hospital. So there were lots of little spin-off benefits. Not to mention the benefit of us raising awareness of these species and them not just being poached for bushmeat,
which we
saw poaching camp, and the game wardens that were there and the outfitter and Man, the head guide, are going to take it up with the local community and say, we're going to cut your community support fees if you don't find out who the poachers were and get them punished. So that is, we are benefiting that species by being there. We saw an abundant amount of sheep, whether they be 10 kilometres away through a spotting scope. There are lots of animals up there, so unless we continue to hunt them sustainably, it's very likely they'll be poached out.
And they have a very strict permit system here.
Very strict. There's 3. I think there's 3 outfitters that can take you. I would highly recommend Samshire because I've been with him. I think some of the American outfitters are just booking agents and will double the price to come here and won't add any extra value on top of that. So go directly with Samshire. I think you're going to be. Sorry about the noise in the background. They're just putting wherever we are together for the day, so you might hear a bit of waffling on. But they auction the tags. There's 20 blue sheep tags and 10 Himalayan Tahr tags every year. And they go into an auction process, so there's a flat rate for the hunt, and then it can be variable depending on how much it cost for the auction tags in that year. I was very lucky and got a Tahr tag at not silly money, so that's why I was able to do the combo hunt and hunt both this year. But yeah, they're rare but it's it's a fabulous piece of conservation in a very remote part of the world.
Yeah.
So
I do worry and I think this is true in a lot of parts of the world. I do worry what would happen if there wasn't the vested interest of what is predominantly foreign hunters coming in, because you can see the care that's taken.
Yeah,
Because there's a reason to look after that area and the animals in it.
completely. And it's not just in Nepal, it's in Africa, it's even in United Kingdom. You know, by hunting, it demonstrates a value and a worth to these animals, and you know, I shall continue to do that. I think it's excellent to see the direct benefit, and not forgetting we've stayed in hotels in Kathmandu, we've bought, you know, all sorts of bits and pieces in Kathmandu. We've brought money into the local economy, so you know, you can see it firsthand. It's leaving my wallet and staying in Nepal, and I'm very happy with that. You know, I'm taking something very valuable away for me, which is the experience, and I'm very happy to pay for that.
Just to finish up, because I'm not sure how well there's a lot of background noise now, but I wanted to just talk about Man for a bit. He had an amazing story, Matt, his sort of poacher come gamekeeper story.
That's right. That's right. You were correct there. Now I think you guys had more.
Did we get more of the story?
Yeah, you got
than
more
did?
on that story than I did. But yes, he does have a poaching background. But I can't recall the date or the time that he transitioned.
It was during the Civil War in Nepal, which lasted for 10 years. I think, wasn't it from 2000?
It was in the early 90s, mid-90s.
It was 10 years, 1994 to 2004, where they overthrew the fact that there was a king. During that period, Man was a hardcore poacher, and
For meat, wasn't it?
For meat, yeah. And he learnt the Dorpatan area, which is where we were hunting, like the back of his hand, because that was his larder. You know, that was how he was feeding himself and his family. There were some religious festivals, which the result of the religious festival was to go out and hunt an animal to celebrate the religious festival, and he'd be the guy that they'd call on to go and do that. So, you know, that's where he cut his teeth and learnt his trade. Was out without tags and without auctions, was going and you know, harvesting Tahr and blue sheep. He was quite cagey with us. Samsha, the guide, told us about it, but when we questioned Man, he was quite guarded about it. Understandably. But yeah, he is the classic poacher turned gamekeeper. And you can see he's a student of the animals. He absolutely loves them, and you know, the way that he knows.
Incredibly animated, wasn't he?
Very animated. Yeah, I loved how he gesticulated. You know, when he was showing us where animals were and how we were going to move around the mountains. Awesome guide. Really very memorable to hunt with someone like that. It was a very, very nice guy, and he managed to pull off the feat of having two wives, one old one and one young one, and they both got along just fine. And he'd spend one night with one and one night with another, and that was all cool. So I don't know how that managed to come to fruition, but he seemed to be able to dance that one and not get himself into too much bother.
He seemed like a very happy man for it.
He seemed like a very happy man, yeah. And apparently the children from each would go to the other on the nights he wasn't with them, so he'd end up with Mrs. 1 or Mrs. 2 all on his own.
And he's a Christian, apparently.
Yeah, was he Hindu and then he's converted to Christian, yeah. But he kept some of the, I don't know which religion the two wise things falls into. I think
he might have just picked that one himself.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
brought that with him.
Yeah. But anyway, he's a cool guy. His handle of English wasn't brilliant, but it was quite charmingly brilliant.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was something. So how long are we going to stay here? Many long.
Many long,
yeah.
We liked many long.
Many long, yeah. When we were spotting. How long's it going to be? Many long. So no, he was cool, and but the other guides as well were lovely. Raju, who was
like the assistant guide.
The assistant guide, yeah, he was brilliant. And actually, when I was struggling with altitude, he graciously carried my pack and rifle at times when I was really struggling with it, and he was, you know, strong as an ox but built like a beanpole and could move around the mountains like a goat. He was just a, you know, remarkable guy. So, but always smiling and happy, and yeah, like I said, they're really lovely people.
Matt, just to finish up now, mountain hunting for people in the UK is not something that really gets talked about that much. It's, I don't know, they're for whatever reason, I guess it's because we don't have it on our doorstep, so that people don't realise that the allure is there. But what would you say to encourage people to at least look into it? Because it is an experience that is quite spectacular when you compare it to, you know, there's a lot of great hunting out there, but there is something about mountain hunting, and you've done quite a bit of it.
Just the dynamic of a backcountry trip. It gives you a totally unique experience. I think you guys had mentioned that there's a lot of day type hunting where you go out for the day and then you come back to a lodge or some type of base camp. It pushes you physically and mentally. And of course, when you're in the backcountry, there's no distractions, and you never know what you're going to stumble upon. Whether it be, a pack of wolves, a herd of caribou when you're on a mountain goat hunt, those type things. And just it's an experience, that you can't get anywhere else unless you just go deep and immerse yourself in the backcountry and go from there.
Well, there you go. I think if you haven't been enticed to at least investigate a slightly more wilderness backcountry mountain experience from this, then it's probably not for you. And hopefully some of the pictures that we put up and Simon puts up in the coming weeks,
and the film,
and the film that's going to be a little bit longer, but will entice you further to look into it. But gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time out.
Yeah, and Byron, thank you for putting up with me and following me around the mountains with several cameras and a backpack full of equipment. I was very grateful. You did a great job.
It is a pleasure. It was an experience I will never forget. Thanks very much, chaps.
All right, thanks.
And that is it for 1 week, where we bring you our product show. I was gonna say, we are now on Overcast. So if you are listening to this on, I don't know what you'll be listening to on. Most people listen through iTunes and the native app that is on Apple devices. But there is now an app that is very popular called Overcast, which is available on Apple devices and Android devices. So it's very simple, and I've downloaded it. I've used it. I would say it's better than the Stitcher app.
It worked well.
Yeah, it worked very well. So if you are using Stitcher right now, then I would consider maybe moving over to this.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Recommendation on podcast app.
Yeah.
Not 100% sure who you're going to be hearing from in 2 weeks' time when we come back with our regular podcast with a guest, but I think it might very well be David Wright and Roy Lupton.
Which was an extraordinarily popular podcast.
It was.
Yeah.
And it just it must have been this time last year. I can't remember if it was before Christmas or maybe just into the new year, because I know that Roy, right now, as we speak, is sitting in a cottage not about 10, 15 miles from our office, flying his eagles. And David Wright is going to be up filming for Field Sports Channel in the next few days. So I'm going to try and find a moment when they are free again, and Daryl and I are going to go up, sit around a fire, hopefully be fed again. Last time I went there, I got dinner, which was great, and it was mountain hare stew that had been killed by his eagles, so that was superb, and record another podcast with them. And we'll try and go into a few things that we never got into with them last time.
We are going to be... Well, I was going to say something. I've completely lost my mind of what I was going to say.
I have no idea, Joe. I think we pretty much touched everything right at the start. Don't forget to enter the competition.
There was definitely something.
Was there something?
Yeah, it was on the edge of my mind.
I'll run through the few things just to remind people while you're trying to drag it from the back of your memory. Don't forget to enter our competition for the set of Smith Optics interchangeable lens shooting glasses, which will be running over the next 2 weeks. Check out the DNA Film Festival Facebook page, because there's going to be a ticket giveaway, a pair of tickets, and there's only 20 or 25 tickets being available to the public. So you're going to be two of very few people. There's going to be about 80 people in total, and a lot of industry people there.
Drinks and canapes.
Drinks, canapes, and yeah, it's a first of its kind. So you're going to be at the premiere of the premiere in this country. It's never been done before, so it's super exciting. Go and check out our shop. We mentioned some of the products at the start. And, of course, the hunt, the wilderness hunt. I'm going to put a lot of pictures in the next week to 2 weeks to entice you. There's one spot left. And as I said at the start, for people who listen to the podcast, we're going to knock £300 off the price which is on the website. If you go to thepagebrothers.com, click the tab that says Wilderness Hunt, and you can read all about it. There's no new pictures up there yet. Those pictures are from last year.
Maybe I can get a few up today. I'll try. I'll see how busy we are.
But yeah, 300 quid off the listed price there. So
that's what I was going to say.
You've remembered.
We've in the past, it's been tell your friend about the podcast month, and we're way to go into December now. And everybody that listens to this show, can you please refer someone to this show?
Yeah,
that's how we spread the word. We spread the love. And if you are listening in the UK, tell a friend. And we know that we have a number of Swedish listeners and Norwegian listeners, and we have a few German listeners that message us on a regular basis. So thank you very much. And if you know anyone else that can speak English and would like an English-speaking podcast, then
let them know.
Let them know, because I don't think there is a Scandinavian version of this. If there is, let us know. If any of the...
Yeah, because we'd like to get in contact with them.
We'd like to speak to them. So if any of the people in the Scandinavian countries know of a podcast that does similar stuff to us, let us know so we can speak to the hosts, because we love doing kind of swap podcasts.
Yes. And that is it. You're going to hear from us in 7 days with a whole bunch of product that we use, and it might very well give you some ideas
for Christmas.
For your Christmas.
It's not necessarily hunting stuff either.
All sorts of stuff.
So it was a really popular show last year. You'll enjoy it again this year.
I'm going to have to try and do a bit more preparation than I did last year, because last year all I did was go into my drawers right before that morning and put in all the stuff that I use and shoved it in a bag and then arrived with it to record. So I'll try and do a little bit more preparation and thought for this show. Speak to you in a week.